everyone. Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome my first guest. You might recognize him from Brotherhood, the Mayor, Al Sapienza. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Kate.
In studio today. Very unique perspective on something that has been in the news here in Rhode Island. This pertains to Jason Fain. Now, this is the proposal for the 46-story tower on the 195 land that's been under consideration. Al, you've lived in Toronto in a Fain tower.
Yes, I did. I had the honor to live here for 4 years when I played your mayor on Brotherhood, and I also live in one of Jason Fain's buildings in Toronto. It's called the Chaz, and I know him very well, and I know Gad also, one of his partners. And I know this may sound corny, but I want to start this by saying that their passion, and this, I know it sounds corny, but this really means something. His passion isn't money. His passion is making incredible buildings and enhancing communities, and he does. They're successful. It was the same situation, and believe me, I get it, and I understand. I mean, you know, change is hard, and people love the way things are, and they love the feel of a community, but the future has to come. And for the first time in the history of America, more people are living downtown in cities than in suburbs and rural areas ever. So they build communities. And I live in his building. And did you want to ask me questions, or should I just keep going?
What lured you to his building in Toronto?
Gad, one of the partners, said to me, I want you to see this building. And it was the same thing. They had the same thing. They didn't want them to build it. They didn't want to change the street. They didn't want to change the neighborhood. They built this building. I don't know how many stories. I lived there. I don't remember. It's like 50. I can't remember. But this building is gorgeous. And it transformed this neighborhood. You build these buildings, you get more businesses, more street fare. They built a Whole Foods. And they dedicated 2 complete floors of this building in Toronto that they could have, used and sold. 2 complete floors are a sky lounge. And you could see all the way to Buffalo across Lake Ontario, and I'm not exaggerating. And again, I'm telling the truth. If I didn't do this, I wouldn't be here. It's not because I like them. You go there any time of day. People are in that lounge reading and studying. You go there 3 o'clock in the morning. It's gorgeous. And and then upstairs you can have private events for your family and parties. And it's just this panoramic view. You can see all the way to Buffalo across Lake Ontario. They're downstairs. Their gym is incredible. They have a game room with actual consoles where you're in a cockpit of a plane or a racing car. No, this place it's one of the most beautiful condominiums I've ever seen in my life. And instantly, it created a community in that building, and then enhanced the community around it. And as far as like efficiency, these buildings are better for the environment. You know, per person, you're using less energy. The heat rises, it stays in the building. I'm all for these things. And I went through this already in West Hollywood. In the 80s, I sat on the council with a friend. It was the same thing. They didn't want to put up the new buildings. But this will be a landmark, and it's going to help this city. It's going to bring people here. It's going to increase foot traffic. And I honestly, again, I respect your opinion, and I understand. But our older generation, we're all going to die out, and they're going to build these buildings anyway. So you might as well do it now and benefit by it. But anyway.
Are you just encouraging people to have an open mind with this project?
Yeah, it's yes. And another thing also. Again, I went through this in West Hollywood. We went through it in Toronto. You can't stop the future. You could only ensure that the people who are molding the future are like these guys, that they're building ecologically responsibly. They're building a great project. They're building something that will enhance the community that's there and bring commerce, plus the tax base. You're going to get $70 million. I mean, the future, it's hard. Change is hard, but I believe it's just my opinion. I'm just trying to help. I live in one of their buildings, and it's called, oh, and one other thing, Toronto's a big city. I don't have to say I live at 45 East Charles Street. When I say the Chaz, everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's a gorgeous building. And believe me, everyone knows. I'm telling the truth. I really am being totally sincere.
We talked about it in the green room before you came on. I mean, you live 3 separate places. Is Toronto tops? Is that your fave?
I have to be honest with you, and as an American, I shouldn't say this. Toronto it's a different society. People are, you know, listen, I was born and raised in America. I love it. I'm a New Yorker. I have a home in New York. I'm an actor. I have a home in LA and a home in Toronto. Canadians are nicer. They're more about the group. They're not like, you know, Americans lately, me, 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 me. You know, I love Canada. I love the Torontonians. And again, and very importantly, these guys that are building this, to them, it's about the passion of building a great building. It is, and their buildings, look at the buildings they built. They're standout buildings.
Well, speaking of Toronto, we did talk with Air Canada. They were in just the other week. They're going to be direct flights from TF Green straight to Toronto. How are the folks in Toronto doing now after what we saw this week there?
It's just, this stuff is ridiculous. They're okay, and it's funny. As big of a city it is, it's a small town.
Yeah.
And I did a play up there for a year and a half at the Royal Alexandra Theater, and you know, I called everybody, and these things, it breaks my heart. You know, I love this country. It just breaks my heart that it's come to this, that people do these crazy things and hurt. If you're gonna hurt somebody, hurt the guilty people. Don't hurt innocent people on the street. It's just, it's absurd. It's really crazy.
As you've let us know, Toronto is practically, it is home to you, and you've really identified it as home base. But you're all over the place. I mean, folks watching right now, again, know you as the mayor, know you from The Sopranos, know you from House of Cards, but you've got a project going on right now in New Orleans. Tell us what's next for Al.
Yeah, you know, for an actor, the key thing is to keep working. You just got to keep creative. You got to, hey, look, if you don't work as an actor, you're not making any money, too. I wouldn't be able to live in the Chaz. You know, right now I have two things. I'm making a movie with the fabulous, fantastic Tom Hardy. Also, Matt Dillon's in it, Kyle MacLachlan, Kathy Narducci. She played Charmaine Bucco in The Sopranos. And it's called Fonzo. And it's about the last 3 years of the life of Al Capone. Tom Hardy plays Fonzo. I play his older brother, Ralphie. It's very factual. Catherine from The Sopranos plays his sister, Rosie. And it'll probably be out in about 9 months. It's called Fonzo. And then I'm also on a TV show that I shoot in Montreal. It's called Jack Ryan. It's on Amazon, and they just announced they were getting picked up for a second season. It hasn't even aired yet, so that's very exciting. That's with John Krasinski and Timothy Hutton. There's some good actors in there, and oh my God, I can't remember, but anyway.
No worries, won't put you on the spot, but I appreciate your coming in to give your unique perspective. Having been the mayor here, having known Providence, but also...
I love Providence. I really do. I loved it here.
Well, thanks for coming back and, again, giving us your perspective on Jason Fain's building up in Toronto as we continue to report on the story here in Providence.
Keep an open mind and embrace the future.
Al Sapienza, I appreciate you taking the time to come in. I'll let you go around the corner.
Did I make any sense?
Perfect sense.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with our next guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.
Thank you again, Kate.
Thank you. Okay, let's go around the corner. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the 4 o'clock show. 3 o'clock was The Taste with Rick Simone. Cinco de Mayo kicked off news and politics with actor Al Sapienza. You remember him as the mayor in Brotherhood, talking about living in a Fain Tower as Jason Fain's 46-story tower proposal is moving here in Providence. I'm very excited to welcome my next guest here into the studio, Amy Davidson with YWCA of Rhode Island. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. You've got an event taking place this week as part of a larger movement that YWCAs all across the country are taking part in, and this is Standing Against Racism.
That's correct.
So talk with us a little bit about the movement, and we'll talk a little bit. There's a screening of the movie Get Out tomorrow, which Amy says she's seen a number of times, and more importantly, a discussion afterwards. So let's talk about Standing Against Racism and YWCA's role in the process.
Absolutely. So Stand Against Racism is an annual event hosted by the YWCA USA, and it's hosted by YWCAs across the country, including our local YWCA here in Rhode Island. The mission of the YWCA is to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, dignity, and freedom for all. So each year for the last weekend in April, we celebrate the Stand Against Racism event by holding different events around the country to acknowledge it.
And you may have seen the trailers, you may have seen the movie as well, but Get Out. So talk with us about choosing this movie. You've seen the movie, and how you think and how you know it's going to spark conversation.
Well, Get Out is a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it yet, you absolutely should. And it's definitely a movie that is worth it seeing in a large group. I originally saw it in the theaters, and it's one of those very kind of rare theater experiences these days where seeing it in the theater kind of elevates the experience. So seeing it with a group is definitely highly recommended. And then it definitely just inspires a lot of conversation, a lot of deep thinking in people after they see the movie. So I attended actually another organization hosted an event where they screened the film and held a conversation afterwards a few weeks ago. And it was really robust. People had a lot of strong reactions to the themes of racism, colonization, racialized violence in the film. So we're hosting our own. It's going to be tomorrow at the Knight Memorial Library in South Providence in their auditorium from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we still have seats available. So if anyone is interested in joining us, they can RSVP by emailing me directly. Amy at ywcari.org. That's AIMEE at ywcari.org. The movie is about an hour and 45 minutes long, and then we'll follow it up with a really intense conversation about the themes.
Okay, and talk with us a little bit. You said there's still tickets available, and you've been a part, as you said, of a discussion, having watched the movie before. Talk with us a little bit about that. You know, I'm sure there was a diverse audience there in attendance. And, you know, how is it to use a movie as a jumping off point, you know, something fictional, but to bring in sort of real life actualities and problems and things that persist?
Absolutely. So Get Out is a really masterfully written film. It was written and directed by Jordan Peele, and he actually won an Academy Award for the screenplay of the movie. The movie is very skillful in addressing the issues of racism, especially in so-called kind of liberal white spaces. So the white family in the film is kind of shown to be very progressive and open-minded and accepting, and yet there's this sort of dark secret kind of hiding under the surface, this kind of insidious plot. And it's just very skillful in kind of communicating how racism is a lot more than just how we treat each other, than our day-to-day interactions, interracially. It's more systemic than that. It has more to do with our behaviors, our choices, and the way that we live our lives.
Well, it sounds like a fantastic movie. And again, taking place from 3 to 6 tomorrow. This is the focal point of the Stand Against Racism effort here, especially in Rhode Island?
Yeah, so this is just the event that we're hosting for the community. Internally, we are doing a voter registration campaign within our organization. We're trying to get all of our eligible staff and families to register to vote for the 2018 election, because the national theme for Stand Against Racism this year is civic engagement. So we are encouraging our Providence community to get engaged by coming out and watching this film and having what may be a difficult conversation about the themes in the film, sort of examining their own practices, their own lives, their own policies, and sort of wondering, do I exhibit some of the behaviors in this film? Do I kind of identify with some of the less savory characters in the film in ways that I didn't realize before? And then, of course, our theme of civic engagement has a three-pronged approach. That's organize, elect, and, sorry, let me check my notes because we're live, serve.
Okay, last but not least, organize, elect, and serve. And so talk a little bit, too, about the ability to have this conversation of people in person. We see social media so much these days being that sort of padded room of people saying, doing things without having the reaction. How powerful was to have people sort of all around and talking, and not having that computer screen in front of you or writing your thoughts in the movie just down on a keypad. You know, could this be a catalyst for more types of conversations like this?
We certainly hope so. I mean, the idea of getting people to come and share a space and share an experience and then speak frankly about their impressions of the film or, you know, what it invokes in them, it kind of removes us from that, oh, I'm behind the screen, I'm a little bit anonymous, I can kind of say and do what I want, and asks us to be more earnest and sort of self-interrogating in our observations of racism in our community, in our state, and in our country. And these are really important conversations. They are hard to have, they are uncomfortable to have, and we have to be willing to be uncomfortable, to sort of not so much be in a safe space, but be in a brave space where we can confront these issues that continue to impact the quality of people's lives all over the country.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a fantastic event tomorrow from 3 to 6. Again, just run through the details again, which we'll put up on the link afterwards, but let folks know once again where this is taking place.
Sure thing. So it'll be at the Knight Memorial Library tomorrow from 3 to 6 p.m. and there are still seats available. So if you're interested in joining us for this screening, you can email me at aimee@ywcari.org to reserve a spot, or several if you want to bring a friend.
Well, Amy, I so appreciate you taking the time to come down here on a rainy day to bring awareness to this effort by the YWCA, and again, the screening of Get Out tomorrow at 3 p.m. Amy, thanks so much.
Thank you for having
me. I'll let
you
go around the corner. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with our next guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the 4 o'clock news and politics show. We've had a full one so far, and I'm very excited to welcome my next guest in, Ruthie Fetter, the Executive Director of the Mental Health Association of Rhode Island. Ruthie, thanks for coming in today.
My pleasure.
It's at the end of April now. You're gearing up for a big month in May. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and there are going to be a number of events and activities taking place around the state to bring awareness to mental health issues. So talk with us a little bit about the overview of what you're looking to achieve in the month, and maybe some of the nuts and bolts that folks should know while we have you here.
Sure. Well, first of all, we have our kickoff of May is Mental Health Month on Tuesday, May 1st at the State House and State Room, and a number of dignitaries will be present. The theme of the day is mental health parity, behavioral health parity, which means substance use disorder and mental illness. And so at the kickoff, we want to start raising people's awareness about what does that mean? What does it mean if there is a parity, P-A-R-I-T-Y, violation? And through the year, it's sort of at the kickoff because the Mental Health Association is going to be spending a lot of this year raising awareness on this issue. But in addition to the kickoff, where there will also be 2 people who have lived experience with mental illness, they will also be presenting. We will also be giving a leadership award, a legislative award as well. The month contains numerous activities from all over Rhode Island. We have a planning committee that gets together from many, many organizations around the state. They come together, we end up, each organization plans an event, and that's this calendar, which is available on our website, mhari.org. And some of the items, some of the classes require registration, some don't. It's all there. If there's any problem, you can always call our office, 401-726-2285. But there are numerous classes, workshops, seminars that should be of interest to many, many people because mental health, substance disorder is rampant. Every family either has experienced it themselves or knows someone who has.
And so the whole month of May will provide that link to the calendar as well. All these events taking place around the state, again with the big kickoff taking off on May 1st up at the State House. Let's talk about where things stand. Let's talk about the parity issue.
Sure.
I know it's big for families, it's big for insurers, you know, folks addressing it as the health need that it is. Have we been making strides from a health industry standpoint to make sure that substance abuse, mental health, again, gets the coverage that is needed from a parity standpoint?
Well, it's a good question. The state of Rhode Island has a mental health parity law. When I use the term mental health, I also mean substance use disorder. Federally, Patrick Kennedy was behind promoting and getting passed a federal parity law. They're wonderful laws. There's not 100% compliance on the part of health insurance companies.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people in the state working on this. The Office of Health Insurance Commissioner is doing a review. We're not looking to get insurance companies to comply. We're looking to get the word out so people understand, what does mental health parity mean? And what it means is that any treatment or services for mental health or substance use disorder have to be the same as you would get for a medical surgical problem. They can't be different. It's like a balancing act. They have to be the same. If you get mental health benefits, they have to be the same. So we want to raise awareness because, in answer to your question, there are still issues. There's legislation pending in the legislature right now. It's an ongoing effort.
Again, to keep bringing attention to the issue, to the parity issue. And where do you think things stand, Ruthie, in 2018 in terms of recognizing the need to address mental health, to also look at destigmatizing the issue, which has been something that groups have been working on hard now for decades? Where are we in 2018?
Well, first of all, this year, right now, the governor has made mental health a priority. That's really important to get the word out there. It makes a statement that this is not something to hide from, but there still is a stigma. People are still afraid. If they're depressed, they're afraid to call their employer and say, I have to be out because I'm really depressed. They say, I have a cold, I have the flu. We want to change that. It is 2018. It's time for that to be over. Mental illnesses are not make-believe. They're not voodoo. They're real. They're illnesses. They're biochemical. And we want to get the word out that it's time to move on.
And let's talk as well, especially among youth. Let's talk about mental health and what we see in the schools, what we've seen with school shootings, a lot of talk about addressing the mental health needs of students and families. You know, you're the executive director of the Mental Health Association of Rhode Island. If families have concerns about their children, what's the first step? Is it the primary care doctor? What's that first step when you said we might need to get help?
Probably, if a school has an involved, engaged counselor, that would probably be the first place to go. But there are some families who don't want the school to know. That gets back to the stigma issue. I'm hoping 5 years from now, this conversation will be different. But if they don't want to go to the school counselor, the primary care physician is the next step, unless they already have a relationship with a mental health professional, in which case the best thing would be to turn to that professional. But barring that, then the primary care provider, whether it's a pediatrician, a family doctor,
that's where to start as well. And let's talk about the substance abuse side of things as well. Again, going hand in hand with, I'm going to bring you a little closer over here, with mental health issues. Again, has that awareness level been raised to some, put the two issues together?
I think that with the tragic opiate crisis that we're experiencing, not just in this state but nationally, I do think people are very, very aware of the problem and they're very eager to solve it. But part of solving it is looking at not just let's solve this current problem, let's look at how did we get here? And we need to do prevention at a very early age.
So while I have you in here, again, we're going to provide this link to all the events going on around May, but give us a little sense about what some of them might be and who might be interested. Feel free to go to your cheat sheet. I
have my cheat sheet. Well, I'll tell you first about a couple that our organization itself is sponsoring. One is entitled Recentering, Quieting and Calming the Mind and Body in Turbulent Times. And that is being put on by a licensed massage therapist who specializes in light touch mind-body modalities, a yoga and meditation educator, and a psychologist. And the focus is to learn how to change the way your body and mind respond to stress and physical and emotional pain, which is excellent.
I can't imagine anyone who would say that that doesn't sound like something they might need.
We all need it. Then another one that we are putting on We just talked about parity. We talked about discrimination for people with mental illness and substance disorder. Sam Selganic, who's an attorney at the Rhode Island Parent Information Network, and I are going to co-lead a training, a workshop for healthcare providers, office staff, patients who want to know how to recognize a parity violation,
Okay.
what to do, where to go, what the next step is.
That's really putting the advocacy hat on
That
there.
is right.
And again, bringing in everyone in the healthcare community. Again, so many events taking place in the month of May. We'll provide that calendar for you on GoLocal after. But Ruthie Fetter, I appreciate your taking the time. As May is, we look outside, hopefully just around the corner here, but lots going on with Mental Health Awareness Month. So appreciate your taking the time to come in.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Former U.S. Senator Lincoln Chafee. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome back a familiar face. He has been here before, former U.S. Senator, Rhode Island Governor, Mayor of Warwick, Lincoln Chafee. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Kate. It's good to be back.
Big day, exciting day. Previous times that we've had you here in studio, we've talked about the potential of looking at running for governor again, but now it's shifted. Talk with us about looking to primary Sheldon Whitehouse in the Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate.
I was on this show about 3 weeks ago where I talked about the Yemen war vote, which is extending the authorization of force from the old 2001 authorization, which we gave, and I was there, right after September 11th, to unlimited, unfettered war, and especially to President Trump. And I took issue with it then on your show here, and I think it's a big motivating factor. Senator Whitehouse did not vote with Senator Sanders and Senator Mike Lee, a Republican from Utah, on that authorization extending it to Donald Trump, to President Trump. Very, very bad vote. And I think in a Democratic primary, we should be talking about these types of issues. Not only that one, but his lack of opposition to the Burrillville power plant, despite all those speeches on climate change. Here's your opportunity to come out in opposition to the power plant proposed with natural gas, fracked natural gas up in Burrillville. And as Attorney General, he did oppose a power plant up there. So there's, that's a good issue. And also, of course, a big one for many Democrats in Rhode Island who supported Bernie Sanders for president in the Rhode Island primary, presidential primary in 2016. In fact, Senator Sanders won almost every city and town in Rhode Island across the state. And when the roll was called for Rhode Island, it was 20 for Clinton, 12 for Sanders. All the superdelegates, including Senator Whitehouse, defied the wishes of Rhode Islanders. Rhode Island independents and Democrats voted in the primary, went down and voted for Senator Clinton, who then lost to Donald Trump, the most unelectable man in American history, in my opinion.
Have you been having any conversations with Bernie Sanders? Do you envision having any conversations?
Yes, I would hope so. I've certainly talked to his supporters here in Rhode Island, and they were the ones that first approached me. His supporters here in Rhode Island that got him that big win in Rhode Island across the state. North Providence, Johnston, Warren, South Kingstown, Warwick, Providence, you name it, Woonsocket, across all the rural, the urban, the suburban communities in Rhode Island, Sanders won them. And these people worked hard for him and are mad that when they called the roll in Rhode Island, it was 20 to 12 for Secretary Clinton. And they're mad at the superdelegates, and particularly Senator Whitehouse.
So you went through, some of the issues that you have concerns with Senator Whitehouse about. Do you envision this now in 18, as you just pointed out, kind of like this Sanders-Clinton-esque rematch in terms of where the Democratic Party is going?
Yes, I do. I think that debate should be carried on, and I think it's been a big mistake for the Democrats to ignore the fact that we nominated a flawed candidate, and they keep talking about Russian influence in the election. And they don't want to just look in the mirror and say, we nominated a flawed candidate, and I believe Senator Sanders would have beaten Donald Trump. There was a thirst for an outsider, an authentic outsider. And that's how Trump galvanized his support. President Trump galvanized his support. Senator Sanders had that energy, bumper stickers and lawn signs, and he would have, I believe, in this climate of wanting an outsider, won. And the Democratic Party should be looking at that mistake, and the media who all got behind Secretary Clinton, that mistake, instead of looking at Russian influence. The Russians didn't have any influence on the people in Wisconsin and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Florida, all those key states that Trump ended up winning.
And so you mentioned the Barville power plant, as we have reported in the past, and many have as well. Senator Whitehouse talking about climate change in Little Compton while there happened to be a key meeting up in Barville. I mean, can it be possible for someone to not take a stance in his position? He's been deferring to saying it's a state's issue, but yet he is, probably his top issue is that he says he's a climate change warrior, but yet refuses to weigh in on this one.
Yes, and he did as Attorney General. They tell me up there in Burrillville, they have the memory of a previously proposed power plant, which he felt free to come out and oppose back then, so there's no consistency here.
And let's talk a little bit again about the war powers and again giving that vote to allow the president. And we talked a little bit about this when you were here. How much concern do you have when we talked about John Bolton?
Yes, exactly. Here we are giving war authorization, unfettered, unlimited war authorization, passed in 2001, and I was there for that. And it was on September 13th, 2 days after September 11th. The smoke was still coming out of the Pentagon, and we were given a 8x10 piece of paper with crossed off words on it, and this was the whereas, and therefore we give the president power to respond to the September 11th attacks. And that's being used all these years later. And now with John Bolton on the scene, what a mistake of a vote. And Senator Sanders, it was bipartisan. He had Mike Lee from Utah. He got other Republicans to vote for it. They got 44 votes, but they didn't get Senator Whitehouse. And that we should be talking about that in a Democratic primary, I believe. That's why I'm running.
So here we are having you in here. What's the reaction been today? What have you been hearing from folks?
I think people like to have choices, and unfortunately in red and blue states, in congressional races, it's kind of a foregone conclusion. If you're a Democrat in a blue state, you're going to win to go to Congress in particular, to the House or the Senate. In a red state, a Republican's going to win. So they're glad to have a primary, and that's the feedback I'm getting, and have choices.
Speaking of primaries, speaking of choices, it's been a crazy political day here in Rhode Island. Matt Brown, who said he was eyeing a run for governor, potentially as an independent, said today he is in fact looking to primary Governor Gina Raimondo. Other Democrats already in that primary field. What was your thought with this move by Matt Brown?
Well, I think personally, since I was contemplating getting into a Democratic primary for Senate, that a good turnout is going to be good and good for democracy. A good, strong turnout, people listening to the issues, making up their mind who they want to support. I think it's healthy.
So here you are, made the news for U.S. Senate today. What's next? Putting the team together.
Yes, yes. I've won 10 elections in Rhode Island, and they've all been competitive. I think I've been outspent in every one of them, and starting city council and going on to be mayor and senator and governor. And so I know what it takes, and it is a big job. It's a big job, and put together an organization. You have to raise some money and be competitive.
So as you said, you've been here before, getting off to the races, so to speak. Talk with us a little bit. Let's play maybe kind of a one-word name association. Republican side, Bob Renat or Lillo?
I don't know him. He served in the House when I was governor. I don't know him. This is America, and I'm glad when people step up and run for office. I always support that, and I wish him well.
Bob Flanders.
Bob I respect very much, and in fact nominated him to a federal benchship. But as I told him to his face, and I know painfully from 2006, having that R next to your name going to Congress, it's just too much. I had 65% approval rating in 2006, and I lost just because I had that R next to my name. They do not, Rhode Islanders do not want to send anyone to a party that's anti-women's choice, that's anti-environment, that's pro-war, that gives all our tax money to the corporations and the wealthy. That's the Republican brand. And for Bob Flanders, it's just too difficult, as Brendan Doherty and others have found, to have that R next to your name. And I said that to his face.
When did you have this conversation with Bob?
At the Christmas party I believe you were at.
One of the Christmas festivities, and now having you back here moving ahead, let's talk also a little bit, Senator, about what's taking place in Warwick. Mayor Avedijan is now heading to RIPTA. Who do we think is going to be the next mayor of Warwick?
Well, he did a great job, by the way, when I made him the chair of the board at RIPTA. And at that time, RIPTA was going through tremendous difficulties. And he came in, and we got the state police, Mr. Studley, to come in as the executive director, and we turned it around. And I'm very proud of that. Once again, one of those areas in state government when I was governor that we tackled the problem and solved it. And we did at RIPTA. And trouble with the unions, trouble with the cash payments in the room and covering up the cameras. And we came in and with Mayor Avedijan and Ray Studley turned it around. So I think it's a good appointment. What happens in Warwick now, we'll see who comes up and steps forward to run.
We'll see who steps forward. Let's see one name that's been tossed out. Joe Shikarchi, he's got a big war chest. Could he be in the mix?
He has said to me personally that he feels that he's in line to be speaker, and that he can, because he's majority leader, that's next in line, and so he's right, and he can continue to practice law and still be speaker. So I wouldn't
think he'd lean that way,
maybe. I think he'd lean that way. He can still have his business, and so it makes sense, common sense. Being mayor of Warwick is great fun, but I'm sure speaker, all the challenges would be enticing to Joe.
Well, of course, you had the political world abuzz earlier this week when you had said that probably not running for governor. There was thought maybe you were looking at mayor of Warwick, but now, again, looking to take on Sheldon Whitehouse. Was it really that War Powers vote that really pushed you over the edge?
Yes, yes. And the support from the people that worked so hard for Senator Sanders here in Rhode Island and became delegates. Many of them went down and went to Philadelphia and saw firsthand, after all their hard work in Rhode Island, getting Senator Sanders winning the primary, to see Rhode Island 20-12 for Clinton, it just broke their hearts and angered them, understandably, after all that hard work. And then the War Powers vote. And also the Channel 12 poll came out in March and showed Senator Whitehouse's support was not very solid. It saved me the money from having to run that poll.
Speaking of polls, everyone's recalibrating theirs literally as we speak, with a whole new shakeup now moving ahead. Now, having been there from 2000 to 2006, and knowing sort of where the moderate, the basically evaporation of a moderate sort of sector, could you see this country being in the position that we're in now in 2018?
Well, I'm good at working across the aisle, and I think that's going to be a valuable talent. And in fact, even within my own Republican Party, it's kind of miraculous that I voted continually against the Bush agenda, whether it was on the tax cuts that favored the wealthy, which I voted against every single one of them, against the rollbacks to the environment, protecting endangered species. I was continually voting against the Bush administration, yet even with a Republican majority in Congress, I delivered for Rhode Island. I like to say, for those that remember that old rusting Jamestown Bridge that sat there for years and years next to the new one, it was my money that I got to take down the old bridge. That was $15 million that I advocated for and got. So I was able to not only vote against the Republican agenda, but get them to deliver for me in Rhode Island, which they did time and time again. Bike paths and keeping our military bases here. And so time and time again, I was able to deliver for them. So that ability to work across the aisle is very, very valuable, and it's a talent I think is in absolute dire need in Washington now.
And what do you envision nationally midterms shaping up to look like, looking at, again, the tone and tenor of the country as we're at here in the midterm of the Trump administration? What do you expect?
Well, as I said, talked about the Democrats and going after the Russians on this. I just don't think that that's playing well for the Democrats, and they seem to have the ability to shoot themselves in the foot over and over again. I do think it's going to be a good year for Democrats in 2018, and possibly take the House, maybe the Senate, and across the country, it's going to be a good wave from my perspective. And so we'll see. But let's focus on the real issues. I don't think the Russians had anything to do with what happened in Wisconsin and Ohio and Pennsylvania. It was a flawed candidate we nominated. Let's look in the mirror, admit our mistakes. The media should do the same. They were all in the bag for Secretary Clinton. I know, I lived through it. And admit your mistakes, and let's try and fix them and have a great 2018 as a party.
And looking back towards D.C., let's talk a little bit about the Trump administration as well. Is he in real trouble?
He keeps being able to galvanize his base, and no matter what he does, and that's been true for ever since he entered the race as a candidate. And
do you think he's Teflon? Does
and
he withstand?
Even the Comey is
Comey,
kind of
Mueller, everybody.
Yeah, backfiring on the Democrats in a way. And George Stephanopoulos, it just isn't working for the Democrats. And from my perspective, who I'm of course rooting for, and Trump seems to keep benefiting from these mistakes. From my perspective,
does anyone seem to have come to the backing of Comey when he came out with his book?
I don't think so. It's too political, and he seems to be contradicting himself at times. I admire the man, but I don't think this performance has been his best moment.
So you talk about your time in the Senate working, pretty much to keep George W. Bush in check. How would you envision working with this administration?
You have to fight them tooth and nail, as I did with President Bush, when they deserve it. And with President Trump, those rare times where he's right, in North Korea might be one, where you're trying to put down the guns, put down the nuclear weapons, put down the vitriol, and try and have a peaceful world. There are times when you have to say they're doing a good job.
Okay, well, we're going to be keeping an eye on you moving forward with the news today. Looking at primary, U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. There's going to be lots to come. So hitting the campaign trail, what can we expect from you next?
You have to work hard, Kate. Nothing's given to you. And you just have to wear out the shoe leather and outwork your opponent. I've always been able to do that. And Rhode Island's a retail state. They want to see you. They want to shake your hand. They want to hear your issues that you care about, hear your passion, and let the chips fall where they may after that. But it all starts with hard work.
Starts with hard work. Well, I appreciate your taking the time to come here to talk with us once again at GoLocal Live at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.
My
Senator
pleasure.
Lincoln Chafee, thanks
Thanks,
so
Kate.
much. We'll talk
Thanks
soon.
very much.
I'll let
Thank
you
you.
go around the corner. And that just about wraps up another day here downtown at GoLocal in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. 2 o'clock kicked off in the Alex and Ani Lounge with Brianna White. Great performance. If you didn't catch it, be sure to do so on Facebook. We'll have it up tomorrow as well. 3 o'clock, The Taste with Rick Simone. Mexican dining and Cinco de Mayo next week on a Saturday. So he ran through some great opportunities, some great looking dishes. Can still smell it here in the studio. And of course, 4 o'clock news and politics. We had a full show for you, talking about the Fane Tower, talking about Mental Health Awareness Month, talking about the YWCA of Rhode Island's event tomorrow with Get Out, a screening here in Providence to talk about the national effort Stand Against Racism. And Lincoln Chafee, appreciate him taking the time to come back and here as he is going to take on Sheldon Whitehouse in the Democratic primary for U.S. Senator. That just wraps up another day here. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow up at the Rhode Island State House once again and back in studio. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel.